Good evening, everyone. For those of you who might not know me, I am Reverend Benjamin Bussey, also known as BJ, one of the assistant ministers at the Union Wesley Zion Church. Before we get started, I first would encourage everybody watching this to, of course, like, comment, as well as share, so that way this dialogue and discussion can reach as many people as possible. It's no secret that for the last 4 months, the United States and really the world has suffered from a global health pandemic. This pandemic has allowed us to see the disparities in the Black community, the lack of resources available to the Black community, and just ultimately how it's greatly impacting and affecting the African American community. We've also suffered from another pandemic. Many of us, or many of you have already heard this cliche, that racism is the most recent pandemic. And really, we can't even say recent, but racism is a pandemic that we've been suffering from over 50, over 100, over 400 years. In recent news throughout the last decade or more, African-American men and women have lost their lives at the hands of police, most, if not all, unarmed. And before we even get started, I think it's just right to mention those names. Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Stephen Clark, Botham Jean, Breonna, and the most recent one that really awoke a world, George Floyd. On tonight, you all have the great and grand pleasure of listening to the men of Union Wesley have a free, unscripted dialogue. We are blessed to be represented by multiple generations, from our teens to our senior saints. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and make these introductions and we're gonna get started. The youngest on our panel tonight is Xavier Carter. Xavier is 14 years old and he is a recently new incoming freshman to the Bishop McNamara High School in Prince George's County. We also have Brother Daniel Bookard. Daniel is a millennial and an HBCU alumni, and he graduated from the prestigious Morehouse College. Alongside Brother Daniel Bookard, we have his older brother, Matthew Phillip Bookard. He's a child of God, born in Washington, D.C. and raised in PG County. He's a husband, a father of two, graduated as a student and an athlete from Salisbury University. He is a member of one of the greatest fraternities, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and he is a part of the Delta Nu chapter. And he currently works in federal law enforcement. We also have with us Brother Nalante LeVay. Nalante is a husband, a father of one, a charismatic musician, a producer who currently works for Prince George's County. And lastly, but not least, we have the great John J.D. Perkins. John is a seasoned citizen in his own words. He is a U.S. Marine. He has worked in law enforcement for over 50 years. And he is as well, he wants y'all to know personally that he is a member of the Union Wesley AME Church. We're going to say a quick prayer, and then we're going to go ahead and dive in. Let us pray. Dear most gracious Heavenly Father, we first just come saying thank you, God, for allowing us to be in this place, in this position, to have real conversation. God, you know, many men feel broken, feel scared, feel afraid. You know, many women, African-American women, feel broken, feel scared, and feel afraid. But God, we find our peace and our comfort in you. So God, we ask you bless this conversation, bless this dialogue, and allow it to open someone else's mind as well as someone else's heart. And we'll be ever so careful and ever so mindful to give your name all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. So how everybody doing tonight?
Doing well, doing well.
Midland.
So let's first question. What's going on in society as far as again the recent health pandemic, as well as racism kind of really showing its ugly head. How do y'all feel? And so that we not all kind of talking at once, I'm just gonna kind of jump in. Daniel, man, how you feel?
Feeling stressed out. It's real frustrating. Everything you see in the news right now, especially with the pandemic going on at the same time, it's a crazy time going on right now.
X, man, how you feel?
I'm feeling frustrated. I mean, a lot is going on, but I'm getting through it. I try not to look at the news and Instagram, even though I know I should, but I can't handle it just yet.
I got you, brother JD. How you feel?
I am feeling the way I felt for many years, and that is, I feel somewhat frustrated that we have the same thing happening over and over. And it started 400 years ago, and it has not ceased. So it leaves me feeling somewhat frustrated, to say it mildly.
Got you, brother Matt, man, how you feel?
Yes, I agree. I feel frustrated as well. I think it's not a new feeling. I think what best describes my feeling, I would quote James Baldwin. To be black and relatively conscious in this country is to, be in a rage almost all the time. So that's how I feel. That's pretty much sums up my feelings to what's going on right now.
I got you, man. So I'll chime in as well. Since May 25th, I have been locked into CNN News day and night. And of course, since during the pandemic, I telework from home. So while at the computer, I can just sit and watch TV. And man, it got to a point where I actually had to turn it off because it really starts taking a toll on you emotionally and mentally. And I echo what all of you all said as well. Is you get to a point where you're tired, you're frustrated, you're angry, and you just want better, and you want more. And I just found it so interesting. I was talking to a friend a day ago, is that George Floyd probably had no idea that his life would spark a global movement. George Floyd had no idea that he would be a hashtag. George Floyd had no idea that his life would be taken. But George Floyd didn't know that throughout all of this, he would have a grand celebration and a grand send-off. But I think it's important for us, as brothers, to really kind of have this conversation, because mental health in the African American community is real. And I think for years we kind of tried to put it in the closet, brush it up under the rug, and not really address it. And it's ate away at us as a community. But as we get into the topics for tonight, and you all probably kind of answered this question already a little bit, but we'll dive in a little bit deeper. Do you all feel that it's just more of the same, that things really aren't changing? Like another brother or sister becomes a hashtag. We protest, we say we want change, and nothing happens. Like, do you all feel that we just kind of keep going around the same mountain over and over again?
Okay. I've said this to some other people. August of 1963, John Lewis made a speech at the Lincoln Memorial. if you go back and research that speech, he was complaining and talking about blacks, especially men, how they were treated at the hands of the police, mainly the white police. That was 1963. Last week or the week before, I listened to someone else in one of the demonstrations, and he was complaining about the same thing. If you look at what happened to George Floyd, it was almost as if John Lewis had predicted it from 1963. And I've been in law enforcement for over 50 years. The majority of law enforcement want to do a good job and be fair. However, there's always that 10%. Also, people conduct themselves, and I've been all over this world, they conduct themselves by following. Years ago, when it wasn't the thing to be beating up black folks, and the White House didn't allow it, amendments was being made to the Constitution so that black folks was guaranteed the ability to vote. Things were different. In politics, when things change, certain people change. I don't want to dominate it, so I'm going to finish it by saying this. Those who are racist know they're racist. Those who are racist have an opportunity not to be a racist. Those who are racist will be a racist until it's not advantageous to them not to be a racist. I've said enough.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I agree. I think this has been, something that's been going on, for a very long time. And, it's disheartening that it just feels like this will never end. It's nothing new. It's just something we just got to continue to, fight against.
So we're going to move on to the next, or does somebody else want to chime in before I move forward?
No, that's fine. No, it's fine. I echo Mr. Perkins and Daniel's comments.
Gotcha. So the next question, I think this is real, man. Do you feel like you as an individual and even us as a community are becoming numb to situations like these? And I know it might sound like an oxymoron to a certain extent, considering protests have gone global. But do you as an individual still feel as though it's like, wow, it's just another black man, unfortunately? Like, do you feel like you become numb to situations of law enforcement taking the life of individuals, or even numb to just, the disparities that African Americans go through and or deal with as it pertains to, our community, and when we need resources, whether it be education or whether it be medical insurance? Again, do you all feel like you're just numb to any of this?
I'm not numb. I'm disappointed because we have an opportunity to make changes. When you vote the same person in and they do nothing, and you vote them in again, and you're expecting a change and you get no change, you need to vote. You need to vote those people out. When you're constantly being hunted, and I'm using the term hunted because the young man in Georgia was hunted. He was followed and shot 3 times. He was hunted. If you look at the video, he was hunted. What makes things different now than from years ago is there is a video. Years ago, national TV, if they didn't want to show it, they didn't show it. If it wasn't what they felt would be pleasing to a certain portion of people, they didn't show it. But because now everyone has a video and you have all these other media outlets, it gets shown. Were it not for that young lady in Minneapolis showing that video online, things would have been different. Were it not for the guy in Georgia waiting but turned in the video, nobody would have been arrested. Again, if we want to make change, we have to make change. And that is, for me, I wanted Black Republicans, I wanted Black Democrats. I figured if I got someone in a political office who looks like me, thinks like me, I might have a chance. But when I have one and he's in the office and he kisses the ring of the man who is over everything in the country, we wind up where we are.
I got you. Nalante, how you feel, man? Like, do you feel numb to the things that are taking place?
Yes, I do, because you just get to a point of like death more times in a year or in your life than you should, and it makes you numb. It's like it almost becomes to a point where you don't look away. But I feel like the best way to handle it is that we have to see it. Kind of like what Emmett Till's mother did when they gave her the option of keeping the casket closed, but she chose to have it open because I want the world to see the horrors of what we deal with as a people. So now, basically, with video and social media, in the case that happened, the casket's wide open. And thankfully, there's enough caskets for people to see it all over the world, where this movement has gone global. And we need to do our best to take advantage of it as much as possible. And like Brother Perkins said, to make the change that we.
And X, I'm gonna let you be the last one on this question, man. Like, how? Again, it kind of ties back into like how you feel. But like, again, do you feel like you kind of become numb to what you've seen, as a young man? Again, recent news dealing with both the pandemic, racism, and the pandemic, or the health pandemic.
I think I've gone numb, but it's more so me numbing myself, as in saying that I know what's happening. I don't want to. So, and I already know it's coming. When I heard that George Floyd had died, I figured, oh well, I mean, it's just another black man dead. And it went over my head. And for a second, I had to think to myself, is that a good thing? One of us, somebody that looked like me, died, was murdered, and I didn't even care. But then I saw that the riots were happening, and I realized that we can make change. So I'm starting to not numb myself anymore. I'm starting to feel it.
So, Daniel, do you feel as though recent events with law enforcement has changed your personal view of law enforcement and who they are to you, and how you feel as though they should serve you? Like, what's your current perception on law enforcement right now?
I don't think that my perception has really changed much. And due to personal experiences, whenever, for instance, the stereotype, whenever you're driving, while black, if I'm ever pulled over, I actually, have a sense of fear, because you never know if you're gonna, be able to go home after that. And luckily, that's never the case for me. But the fact that I feel that fear is disheartening.
And what about you, Matt? I know it's a kind of a double-edged sword for you, since you shared that you're in law enforcement, but being in it, and even still understanding that there might come a time where you need to call on them, or it might be a time they might stop you. What's your perception of law enforcement now?
Yeah, absolutely. I take off my uniform at the end of the day, and when I take off my uniform, I'm a black male. So I definitely echo those sentiments. I've been, pulled over, and I felt, I felt nervous because of things like this going on. When you see these type of things, it's hard for that not to be in the back of your head. But as far as you know, my perception of law enforcement, it hasn't changed. I know that uh, they are there to help, and they are, as Mr. Perkins alluded to earlier, uh, a lot of law enforcement, wants to do good and wants to help, but there are some, there are some, I don't want to sound cliche, but the bad apples, if you will, and then there are people who are just, you know, not good at their job. You know what I mean? And then that kind of, that's that. And you find that in all walks of life. I'm sure you've had coworkers and you've experienced it firsthand when people just aren't very good at their job, whether it's a self thing or lack of training or whatever it is. But I think you have to always keep that in mind, and when you kind of with your interaction. And I think what would help, and I'll leave it at this, is that what will help in just our community as well is if our interaction with law enforcement isn't always when you're pulled over or in a negative sense, if you will. So when when there's community service, we need to invite them, and we need to join their community service. I done not too long ago. I didn't live too far from New Carrollton. There's always a sign up in that shopping center. I don't know if anybody's familiar with New Carrollton, Prince George's County, but they typically have a meet and greet, things of that nature. So it's important for us as a community to make sure we're not limiting our interaction with law enforcement in a negative light. We have some positive experiences. So every time we think about law enforcement, it's not like, oh, George Floyd was killed by law enforcement. Tamir Rice was killed by law enforcement. Breonna Taylor was killed by law enforcement. We want to have some positive experiences as well.
Gotcha. So we got a question that came in, and it's really kind of catered to you, brother JD, as well as you, Matt. What's your opinion on law enforcement not publicly condemning those quote unquote bad apples? And let's not necessarily think so much about the most recent situation, of course, with George Floyd. I think a lot of police agencies and police officials and leaders have come out, and even entry level law enforcement officers have come out and said, hey, it's wrong. Like he was point blank simple wrong. But before this has happened, why do you feel as though so many officers, whether black, white, Asian, have held to the code of blue when they see their colleague doing wrong? And brother JD, I'll let you lead off on this one.
Okay, I can't say that all have held to not speaking up, because I know officers who have. At the end of the day, you, the officer, the law enforcement official, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be satisfied with what you see looking back at you. As a law enforcement official, you take an oath to do certain things. Some people are strong enough to stand up to that oath, and some people are not. When it comes to why a certain department doesn't make a statement right away, it's very simple. If you come out and make a statement that is untrue, when you make the next statement that is true, what do you believe? So oftentimes, you're asking for time to do a proper investigation. Now, once that investigation is done, if it's done proper, then everything should be, in my opinion, released. And if you do a proper investigation, you'll know who is falsifying, who is making false statements, who is being untruthful. All that will come out in your investigation, and then your department should make that known. That's my take on it, and that's supposed to be the take on any department I've ever worked on. That's what it's supposed to be. However, you also need to have the person doing the investigation to be on the up and up too.
I got you. Nalante, jump in, man. I know you're a law enforcement official. So again, like, how do you feel about again just calling other your colleagues out when they're wrong, man? Like when they're just blatantly in the wrong. I mean, do you feel as though the quote unquote code of blue should be honored in silence because or again, like, should you speak up?
Well, in the correctional facility and the correctional field, we are encouraged to speak up. Let's say something to directly somebody right then and there, or even putting it on paper because in like then it didn't happen. But nowadays, with more so law enforcement, there's cameras everywhere. You're surveilled everywhere. So when departments put out footage that they know can circumvent without putting out something official, that gives automatic transparency, because the last thing any department wants to be is on the 4 o'clock news, because it's a bad look. It's a bad look on the department of those who work there. You get a schism added to you, work there, or might be considering a career. You now just deterred them from considering that as a career. And I think another reason why in the code of blue, why it's like you're held up to a standard until you do something that's really messed up, is because there's such a history of, well, the law is you're going to enforce the law. But when something happens, that standard and conduct we hold much, we're going to find ways to try to put this under the rug so many times as possible and try to keep it down so that way we can kill the noise. And then that way that'll take too much off of our back. But now with cameras and stuff, you can't hide anything. So as a correctional officer, I've said things to coworkers that I didn't agree with. I feel that's a bad, move. And I've always taken the time after a day's work today that can make you better for tomorrow.
Come on, Matt. I know you about to bring it home.
I would say in regards to law enforcement coming out and publicly shaming, people who make these egregious, I don't even want to call them mistakes, when they mess up. First, I would say, yes, I agree that they should. And two, I think it's just it's one of those difficult things when You got people at home watching, an officer with his knee on, a black man's neck for almost 9 minutes. And then what you don't see probably a lot of the times is that, in what Mr. Perkins was alluding to, is that there are investigations going on. But I think both parties have to be comfortable. I think law enforcement has to be comfortable knowing that people are going to be outraged and they're going to be screaming, "Hey, we want justice, we want it now." And I think ourselves as outraged public have to understand that investigations, have to happen as well. And sometimes that may take a day or two. As you notice, the officers in this most recent incident, they did all end up getting arrested. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say close to 5 days, or no, it was actually a lot longer than that. I'm sorry. Once after the protest and things of that nature. But I think if you could see, and you could see that there wasn't an investigation being going on once it was brought to light. And I think the only thing that concerns me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, is, wow, what if it wasn't on camera? But I think we've discussed that a lot now, that thank goodness, for the cameras, and thank goodness these things are being, seen by millions of people. So there can be a fire lit under officials to, speed up the process a little bit so that things don't drag on. But like I said at the beginning, both sides kind of have to understand.
Here's the other part to that. Even when the police officer that was wrong is arrested, and I'll use Rodney King as one, there was a trial. Ray Charles, who was dead and blind, could see that it was not a fair trial. The man got away. We have a culture wherein white folks feel that it's okay to kill black folks. There's always a reason that the black folks was killed, and it's a valid reason. And until we as a people can get them to see that's not fair, that's not correct, that's not right, it'll happen again. But if you start going to punishment for failing to treat everyone like you want to be treated, I mean, Rodney King, they got off. There was another police officer in, I believe, South Carolina, shot the guy 7 times. He gets off with 2 years. Again, I'm going back to when you start electing people who are going to make changes and make those changes work for everybody, there will be a change for better. And back to law enforcement again. Most of the departments try and do a good job. And Friday night, I saw this chief of police in our neighboring community who came right out with the video and said, "Hey, this is wrong." And the officer gets out, tases the guy, puts his knees on his back, tries to tase him in the neck. It was against department policy. There was transparency right there. It says, okay, you're here, we're going to do an investigation, but until the investigation is completed, this person is off, not working.
If I can give my 2 cents as a civilian regarding the question, I think one of the reasons that some law enforcement don't, publicly condemn their coworkers is because it kind of reflects negatively, I guess, against the department or, law enforcement. But, it just seems to me as civilian selfish. It paints a picture that they really don't care.
Yeah, and it's so to kind of piggyback off something you said, brother JD. What I found that truly like irritated my soul was when the defense attorneys, essentially, or for defense for the other, the remaining 3 officers, essentially are trying to blame the community for not stepping in this George Floyd death. But then the defense attorney for the officer, I really don't even want to give him credit by saying his name, that took the life of George Floyd, they're pushing to move his trial to another county because they're arguing that the media coverage has essentially tainted the jury pool. And so, with situations like that, how can we truly get justice when, like, you killed this man in his community? So no, let the community in which you killed, whether black, white, or Asian, but like let the community that you killed this man in unjustly, like, judge you. And that's truly how I feel.
Well, here's the thing. The defense attorney's job is just that, defend. He doesn't care whether it's right. He doesn't care whether it's fair. The defense attorney is just there to win for his client. He doesn't care whether he doesn't care. So should it be moved? And I don't want to get into it, but the Fifth Amendment guarantees everyone something that nobody thinks about, and that is due process under the law. We don't get it. George Floyd didn't get it because due process means he would have had a trial. But that defense attorney's job is just that, to defend. So when he says he wants it moved, doesn't mean he gets it, but that's his job.
I get you. I think we could talk about this one topic all night. But as we segue into the next topic, I really just kind of wanted to say, growing up as a young black man, I was told that when I see red and blue lights in my rearview mirror, I make sure my hands, when I stop the vehicle, I make sure my hands are visible. And when the cop approaches the car, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You need my license and registration. Can I reach for my registration? And so just kind of segueing into the next topic, like, of the past prologue, how do we get here? How do we get to a place where, blacks growing up receive so much instruction on how to interact with law enforcement, but our white counterparts don't?
They didn't have to.
What systematic issues have contributed to this? So X, I'm gonna let you talk, all right?
I think it's a privilege, to have to have that conversation. For us, it's not a choice. Each day we walk out, our homes, we're always going to be black, and to others, we're going to be perceived as a threat, whether we like it or not.
We shouldn't be. When I told my children, and I tell my grandchildren, you litigate in court, not on the street. Be professional. Don't argue. The place for that is in the court. Since I think I'm the most seasoned of all, we growing up wanted black police officers so that they could help offset what we were going through. And they made a difference. It is now a point wherein, again, white, some, not all, feel that it's open season. If I do this to a black person, I am white. I am privileged. I will not be punished. I might have to endure a little unpleasant publicity, but nothing is going to really happen. Now, that's my thought behind it. And from the way I see it, by way of all these previous cases in years past.
So X, man, I really want you to chime in on this one. I know he was a young man. You know, you going through African American studies right now. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure your mother, you know, she talks to you as a young black man on what to do, what not to do when interacting with law enforcement. But I just want to hear from you, man. Like how do you feel we have reached this point? Like how do you feel that we got here?
Can you say that again? You're going in and out. I didn't catch a lot of what you said.
So I was asking you. I wanted to hear from you, man. How do you feel like we got here? You know, I know your mom talks to you. You know, she schools you and act with law enforcement. But again, just from a studying Black history point of view, like how do you feel as though we got here to this place where, you know, again, blacks just don't feel comfortable or free in a nation that's supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I honestly don't know how we got here. I just know that I'm here, and I've been here. I've only been on this earth for 14 years, but I know in those 14 years of living, I am not appreciated. Not many people want me or any people that look like me here, but it's happening, and I've chosen to not just, you know, live in it. I've chosen to grow. I've chosen to thrive. I try not to think about all the bad things that could happen. I'm trying to make a better life for myself. That's why I try to do good in school. I study. I work hard. So then when I'm finally old enough to stand up for myself, I can. How we got here, it's beyond me, honestly. But
if I may, Xavier makes an excellent point. I think, you know, how we got here, 1619, you know, slavery, then Jim Crow, then you know, you just over policing, welfare state, all those things is how we get here. But Xavier makes a great point that, you know, every day, you know, you gotta, you know, educate yourself and, you know, take the step in the right direction and work, you know, work. And we're like, you know, you may not know how you got there, how we got here, but you know, we're here and we're trying to move forward. So, and you're doing the right things to do that. So I would, you know, suggest you and others, not just your age, but my age, everybody on this panel, age up and down, you know, take a page out of your book to, you know, despite what's going on around us, still, you know, us personally are doing the right thing. And if you do well with yourself or a little bit, i.e. yourself, you know, you'll be blessed with a little bit more, and then you do well with that and you continue and you know, next step is, you know, maybe a brother, sister, maybe a family, the community, and on and on. So I would say great job, Xavier, and continue to do that.
Yep.
Right. And I just wanted to chime in myself. I think when we talk about how we get here, how did we get here? I think people really kind of forget that, you know, Martin Luther King didn't die that long ago. You know, people really kind of forget that segregation wasn't that long ago. Like my grandparents, you know, God rest their souls, grew up in segregation. So I kind of asked the question, not really how did we get here, but did we ever really leave the situation? You know, again, what was it something that just kind of did they give us a little bit of freedom to pacify us? Did they give us a little bit of advancement to pacify us? So like, did we really break free of the shackles of our oppressors?
Well, it wasn't given, it was it was earned. For those who marched on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, those who, right after slavery, sought to educate themselves, become members of the United States Senate and Congress, those who over the years had businesses. That's how we got to where we are. We had Frederick Douglass, you had Martin Luther King, you had all these people, and then you had everyone else backing them up or walking with them. And it's, to take the words from someone else who said it, we had unity in the community. What we are having now, that makes me feel much better, is there is multicolors, races, multi-nationalities in a movement to make things better and to make it known that Black lives matter just as much as red, white, yellow, brown. That's what I see. The difference in the past, it was 90% us and 10% others. When you look at all these demonstrations, it's just as many others as us. So everyone is getting on the same page that this is not right and this has to change. Some changes they want to make sense. Some make absolutely none to me.
So, and this kind of what leads into the next question. Like, so do you feel like, you know, us as the Black community, can we play the blame game? Like, can we say, you know, well, it's our congressmen and congresswomen, it's our senators, it's not passing legislation. Like, can we blame 45? Did you know, Donald Trump, did his leadership of this country in current times make racism more prevalent to us than it once was? Like, can we play the blame game?
The blame game, you'd have to blame us. We didn't go to the polls and vote. You have certain people who are there who should be voted out. If they're not going to do something for you, again, why would you put the same person in who did nothing and expect a different results?
Because, and see, Brother Perkins, I feel like that's because we vote on hope. Like, for instance, Prince George's County, you know, we voted in, I forget the executive, but essentially they passed this to bring these casinos to Maryland, and these casinos was going to, you know, pour into the academic community, you know, pour into the public school system. These schools ain't seen a dime, but it's because we're voting for people that's telling us one thing, but they doing a whole nother thing behind closed doors.
But that's when you need to go to the poll and vote them out.
No, you can finish, Mr. Perkins.
I was going to say, again, this is going back to what I said before. I am Representative A. And as Representative A, I told you that everybody was going to have a brand new car in the driveway, right? The only person that got a brand new car was Representative A. So next time when the election comes around, I'm Representative A, and I tell you, I'm going to see to it that everybody gets a new car in their driveway. If you didn't get it the first time, why would you vote for me the second time? And if you did, you're voting for someone expecting to get something that wasn't delivered the first time. So yeah, I mean, it's a combination. We got 45 who okays racism. We got people who are trying to keep you from voting, to steal elections, but we are not voting. We need to vote.
So,
and we need,
I'm sorry. I don't even want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
no,
And guys, if I can, can I?
I'm done.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and what I'm about to say is not meant to mean that we don't vote and we don't try to find people who are like opinions of ours and put them in position, because that certainly has its place. But I think we can't always, especially as a community, especially as a people, we can't always look for salvation in the political arena. You got to look at examples like Seneca Village, and which was Central Park before it was Central Park. Black Wall Street, things of that nature. We gotta invest in our communities, our dollar, and then that's how you change things. You say, hey, we're 80% of the, in a county like Prince George's County, for instance, we're a significant part of the population. We want this many contracts to go to this percentage. Why are we 60% of the population, but we don't have 60% of the contracts, things of that nature. So again, we can't always look to the political arena for our salvation. Like I said, it's not to say that voting is not good, and it's not, we don't want to try to find like minds, but a lot of times we have to look inward and leverage our power, leverage our dollar, leverage our community.
And Matt, I agree with you 100%, brother. And so, how do we get back to that? Like, how do we get back to the Black Wall Street? Like, how do we get back taking the community and going in and saying we're going to make it ours? And I talk to friends about this all the time. I look at Baltimore. Baltimore has not bounced back since the MLK riots. Like Baltimore, you can get a shell. It might not be much of anything but just walls and some pipes, but you can get a shell, for $3,000, $2,000. So, why is it that we wait, for gentrification to happen for us to, go back into the area? And I'm, playing devil's advocate. We go back to there and then we complain about gentrification, but we don't sit and look at grand opportunities that we ourselves as a Black community can take advantage of and take part of and build. Because I feel like there's no reason that we can't have another Black Wall Street. I feel like there's no reason that, out of the Jewish community, out of the Italian community, out of the white community, out of the Latino community, these are all communities we see, on a larger scale, really, that really kind of feed into themselves. The Asian community, they grow themselves. They take advantage of opportunities and they grow. So how do we, as a Black community, get back to that? Like, again, and I guess the number one question: can we get back to having Black wealth? Can we get back to having a Black Wall Street where our voices not only matter because our voices are matter, but our voices also matter because we have economic strength?
Well, let me say one thing. Voting is a part of it, but you have more than one part. It's just like making a pie. You have a crust, you have apples if it's an apple pie, you got sugar. It's more than just one. I used voting, but yeah, you need the Black enterprise, you need the money, and you need other people also to invest. I mean, it's not that Black folks don't possess the ability, but you also have to be able to go to that bank. My wife and I were talking about it the other night. Certain banks are not going to make the certain loans to Black organizations and Black businesses. We need to have a strong policy so that when you walk in the door, they realize, hey, these are formidable people to be reckoned with.
I agree. I think that, we have a voice, and if we don't use it, we're kind of just wasting the power that our forefathers, fought for. And I think that, to get back to Black Wall Street, it all starts with supporting our Black businesses. We have roots, and, if we don't water them, nothing's going to grow. We're not going to sprout.
That's right.
We got to, support and nurture the Black businesses we have already.
That's a great analogy, Daniel. I agree with him wholeheartedly.
Look like you want to say
another
something.
Reason,
or maybe not.
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Another thing I wanted to piggyback off.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I wanted to piggyback off of what Matt said. As far as just here in our area, Prince George's County being one of the most wealthiest Black counties, I believe, in America. So why are our schools struggling? Why don't our schools have the resources that they should have if our schools are predominantly Black and they're in the predominantly Black community? So I mean, again, the question going full circle, like, how do we encourage our brother and our sister to say, no, let's pour into this, let's make this ours?
We have to keep pushing for it. We have to continuously educate each other about building our wealth.
You go ahead, man.
We have to do the things that sometimes we feel is not necessary to do, or take the jobs that we normally wouldn't take, to be able to make the change in the criminal justice system, become the cop, become the lawyer, become the judge, become the deputy, do all those things. Same thing when it comes to building our wealth, become the bankers, become the tellers, become the
loan manager,
the money manager, supervisors. Take it to do those things, and even be willing to learn how to open a business. Because I know a lot of them Caucasian classmates, when I went to school, even if their major wasn't business, their parents made sure that at least one of their classes was business, and if they didn't take it, their parents wasn't paying for them to go to school. So we just have to be willing to we know in the long run will help.
There has to be a sense of pride in, like Nalante said, in the available opportunities, because, these are, the faces of our community.
So we're gonna kind of keep this pushing, because again, that's another good topic we can get caught up on. So here's a topic that's been in the news this week, and I let everybody that is well informed on it chime in. And I'll be completely honest, I'm not well versed on it. I'm still kind of learning about it myself. But the huge topic is defund the police. So I'm gonna pick on Matt. Matt, can you kind of give us the definition of what it is to defund the police, like what that means and how that affects our communities?
So I think in plain talk, if somebody just were to say defund the police, they literally mean they stop investing so much money into police departments. I'm sure everyone knows budgets are made by mayors, presidents, and so on and so forth, and they put that and they set aside money for education, fixing roads, and police. So when someone says defund the police, they probably literally mean take the money from. What I interpret it as is they want to see reform. They want to see more training. That's how I interpret when I hear someone say defund the police, because at the end of the day, you got to understand that, for instance, I kind of agree with DC Mayor Muriel Bowser said recently. Her point was that in the last 5 years, DC police spending has gone up 12%. But you got to understand that DC's population has gone up and the number of calls the police department receives has gone up. So the need as the need goes up, a lot of times the funding is necessary. So if you say you're going to defund something and then at the same time ask for the resource, that can, that can get messy there. So how I interpret it when I hear it is that, people want to see some reform. People want to see people held accountability. I think, of course, it's an activist's job to, let leaders know the issue. So they're going to, say, hey, defund the police. But, I think it's, and I don't want to, I don't want to misspeak and say calmer heads prevail. But I think if we kind of look at and try to narrow down what we actually mean when we say that, I think people can come to an agreement that what communities actually want to see is police accountability, better training, and things like that.
If I can, I'm going to jump in just for a second. In 1969, 1970, 71, the police department would be called to go and it was called investigate the need. So you would respond first and let the fire department know whether they needed to send an ambulance or not. At that time, we were saying we weren't qualified to make those medical determinations. We had all been trained on CPR and first aid back then. However, we had nothing to take a person's blood pressure. We had no stethoscope to listen to the heart, and if we did, we really wouldn't know what we were listening to. So there was a change made, and that change made it so that the fire department and the emergency medical services would respond. Hence, they've hired more members of the fire department to cover that. When you speak of defunding, to me, it means I'm going to take certain responsibilities away and pay someone else to do it. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't.
I don't think we ever really know until we try it. When you defund the police, I don't think that would really be a solution. I think it should be reallocated to better hiring, to better training. I think this is what would fix the problem.
Gotcha. So X, somebody's picking on you, man. We got a question from the floor just for you. Do you feel as though that because of what's going on in today's climate, with racism being so prevalent, law enforcement just to not, being equal in their enforcement of the law with blacks, do you feel like this conversation, if you have white friends, this is a question, do you feel like it's awkward to have certain conversations with your white friends or white counterparts just because of what's taking place in the world now with race and racism?
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you said my name. I don't have many white friends, but I mean, if I did, I wouldn't mind talking to them about it. It's just that we have to be in the same mindset. I don't know if you're racist or not, but if you could trust them. Not all white people are bad. There are white people that understand and that honestly are just people, not just evil white people. So in that sense, then yes, we can have a conversation. It would probably be awkward, but we can have it. I don't mind.
I agree.
But I do go to a predominantly black school, so it's like I don't have many white friends. That's not a choice though. It's just I don't hang.
I agree with X. I don't think we should just be separating ourselves from white people. I think that we should just be having that conversation. Providing them with more information to be more aware of what's going on. more they know, the less naive they will be.
Yeah. Again, most people are not racist. I go back to that thing of the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, the others don't. What we're seeing is a small fraction of people failing to do right. But dialogue with everyone will take care of those who are racist. It will educate all of us. If you don't discuss it, if you don't have dialogue, you can't get anywhere.
Got you. So I'm gonna take a question from the video audience. And his name is Mr. Michael Garrett. He's asking, do you think that the world will ever unite without recognizing solely just race? Like essentially, do you feel as though race will just eventually be moved out of the equation and that we can just unite just as people?
I don't think so. I think that that racism is so deeply rooted, and it's hard to say, but I think we just got to continue to combat that racism. I don't think that we can ever really, it will ever end. Like I don't think we'll ever be seen outside of our race as it's just human beings. Apparently, if that's what the question is.
Gotcha.
What I would say is, if I made that, race is important, but is important, but it shouldn't be divisive. You know what I mean? I'm proud to be Black, and I like to share I'm a Black American, and I like to share my culture, and it should be, you want to educate. I think what we were just talking about is a prime example. Sometimes it's not, people are racist, it's that they're naive. So I need to be able to share with you the history of things. I need to share Latin's plight in America, or their history in America. You need to hear about Hispanic Americans' history in America, so we can move forward. Our important.
All right, man. Throws up on us.
Thing to recognize it in a right way. It just shouldn't be divisive.
Got you. So we're gonna push on. Because again, it's getting good, y'all. But what do you all think? And this is gonna be we're gonna go one by one, and I'll just base it off the screen I'm looking at. What do you all think are things that would be meaningful change where we are? Where do we go from here? Do you all believe that voting will bring about significant change? Do you believe that mentoring will bring about significant change? And I wanted to kind of touch on it earlier because Matt brought it up. Do you feel like community, going back to community policing, will bring about change? And so I'm gonna start off with you, Nalante.
Monty, you're not coming in.
Are we able to hear? Yeah.
I can't hear.
All right, we're gonna let Nalante try to get his comms together. X, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to you. What are some things you feel like would kind of help move us forward? I'm sorry. Do you feel like voting is important? Do you feel like mentoring is important? Do you feel like community policing is important?
I feel like all of those things are important, but I don't really know many ways to bring about change. I haven't really thought about it, but I will know when change is here. And I say that when, like, say I get pulled over. I don't drive yet, so say I'm with somebody and they get pulled over and they are also black. When I can get pulled over and not feel fear that the cop might not be on our side, or fear that I might get gunned down just because of my skin tone, then I'll feel change, and I think that's just best for me.
I got you. Before we move on to somebody else, I did want to ask you, X, especially since you know you're the youngest of us all. When you look for a mentor, what do you expect for that mentor to pour into you? What do you expect from them? What do you, when you as an individual, you as a young black man says, you know, hey, I want a mentor. I believe having a mentor can bring about change in the community. I believe having a mentor can bring about change in my life. Like, what is a mentor to you and for you?
A mentor is a teacher. It's like somebody that could, I learned something from you. You import knowledge into me. You give me the knowledge. You make me wiser in a sense. And a mentor is very important because, you know, like, I know a lot of people who don't have a mentor, or like in some cases a father figure. I was blessed with many mentors and father figures in my life, and I know, like, without one you could go down the wrong path. So it's like having a mentor to teach you how to do good, and it could build you up as a person, maybe show you how to do right.
God, appreciate your answer, man.
You are a mentor, by the way.
Oh, thank you, brother. I feel honored. Daniel, man. Do you need me to repeat the question, or do you remember it?
I got you. I don't think it's really any one thing that will, need to be done. I think, of course, we need to, get out, and vote, and because that will definitely lead to, a better tomorrow. I think that, it goes back to, one of the past questions. We need to support, Black businesses. We need to, continue to mentor, the youth. We got to stay aware of the way we carry ourselves so that we don't present a negative image.
Got you. Brother JD, you next on my screen, man.
All right, my brother. This is my thought on it again. When people look at each other and see, I want someone, when he or she looks at me, it's like they're looking at themselves. So they'll treat me. You'll treat yourself good. Once people get to a point of seeing you for a human being, like they are a human being, we're on a ladder. Then we've made a step up to make things better for everyone in the world. We still again have to have pride in who we are. We would still want to promote who we are. We would still want to present a positive lightness to the world. Race is something that everyone will see, but it won't be something that you want to put yourself above someone else. You would be a human being first, and your race is Black, Native American, Spaniard, whatever.
Got you. Brother Matt.
So if and we're talking about moving forward, correct? Yeah. So what I would say is, in regards to moving forward, what we need to do is look inward. I'm big on developing self, because you got to understand, before we can be mentors, we have to to quote a Jada Kiss verse, you gotta sharpen your steel before you polish it. So that you gotta study and know yourself, show yourself approved. So we need to be, reading our Bibles. You need to read the Constitution. You need to be aware. You need to, we need to health is wealth. We gotta eat healthy. We gotta be about our work. We gotta be in community service. And then once we do that on we gotta tithe. Once we do that on a individual level, I think you'll be blessed with a little bit. You'll be blessed with a little bit more, and then you can help your brother, you can help your sister. Then maybe maybe you get blessed with a family. You can help your family. You can help develop your family. Then maybe you can help develop the community, and so on and so forth. But I think it all starts with the man in the mirror, the man or woman in the mirror, and we gotta develop develop self and make sure we're doing that. And X actually alluded to that earlier. So X, I think you said you don't know how to bring about change, but what you're doing is bringing about change by developing yourself, and and then taking it one step at a time. So I commend you for that. I think that was great what you said a few questions ago.
All right, so I got one final question, and I'm gonna kind of do this so I can kind of also help you all prepare for this. So I got one final question. I'm gonna ask three of the panelists, but after that, we're gonna go ahead and close out. And so I want each of you to take 30 seconds after the final question to just shed some advice to our white counterparts, to our Black brothers and sisters, to our youth, to our seniors. So we'll do that after this final question. But the last question, and I'm gonna pick on X, I'm gonna pick on Delonte, and I'm gonna pick on Brother JD. Do you see the church playing a role in the healing of this nation right now? And X, I'm gonna ask you to go first.
I absolutely see the church playing a role in the healing of everything. I grew up in the church. Church comes first, even though sometimes I don't attend because of other things. But God is first always, and you pray to Him, He'll help you out. I'm sure of that. I was brought up to know that with prayer and a little bit of love, anything could be healed. So,
Got you, Delonte.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you, brother.
We got you.
Okay. All right. Real quick. Yes. I believe the church can be effective because one, the church is the closest ties to the community, especially in the Black community. There's always a church in all of our communities. There is an open wound in America. It's been open for a long time, but it just keeps getting bigger. And now is the time we can be opportunistic in doing the things that we need, whether it be through protesting, whether it be through helping the community, helping those who are less fortunate. Now's the time for us to act. And I believe our actions will say a lot at the end of this, because I'm a firm believer, growing up in the church, that God helps those who help themselves.
Awesome. And Brother JD, come on, man, kick us. How do you see the church playing a role, or is the church playing a role?
The church has played a role from day one. And right now the church does play a role. And if it steps up, it'll play a bigger role. The church played a big role last week when it went down to now I'm blocking on the church, right across from the White House. But the church has always led, and it should still lead, because the church is God. God does not suffer fools.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to do these 30 seconds of advice. I need y'all to stick to the 30-second rule. So Matt, give us 30 seconds of advice, man.
I think my last statement was pretty much my advice, to work on self first and then kind of branch out from there. Don't ever be discouraged. If you face your fears, challenge your fears. Don't be afraid. And don't always, if you're going to look to anything for salvation, it should be towards God. So look towards God for salvation, and He certainly will show you the way.
Brother JD, give us 30 seconds of advice, man.
My 30 seconds comes like this. To thine own self be true. Look to God, pray to God, and always try and gain as much knowledge as you can. And always remember to persevere.
Got you. Daniel, give us 30 seconds of advice, Morehouse, man.
I think that, we have to, as the community, we have to, outreach. We have to, continue to educate. We have that conversation with our white counterparts, make sure that, they're aware of, the struggle. I don't believe that anyone, is truly, evil. I think if we have these conversations that, and we enlighten others, that they'll be more empathetic on what we go through on a day-to-day basis. So I think that we need to just, continue to outreach and pull people in.
Gotcha. Delonte, let's hear from you.
My advice is just to just remain consistent. Like Daniel said, have them dialogues, have them tough conversations, because we gotta let people know that enough is enough, and we've been through this, and we have to continuously educate those coming up behind us and those who are next to us, and they'll see it for themselves, so that way they can be able to fight this with us.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give my 30 seconds of advice because I want X to bring up the rear. Just live, love, laugh, man, and don't hate. I pride myself on establishing great relationships with people. I pride myself on loving people beyond their hurt, beyond their pain. So, man, just love and don't hate. And X, bring up the rear, brother. Give us that 30 seconds of advice.
Okay, I'm a child, but my advice is have faith, just have faith in God, and most importantly, just have faith in yourself. Like, we can get through this as a community, as a people. We got this. I know we do. I've seen too many powerful Black people come up to not believe in us. So, we got this.
Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and pray us out real quick. Let's pray. Dear most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to have this unscripted dialogue, God, just to have a conversation, just to hear from the brothers, God, to hear their hurt, to hear the pain, but God, to also hear the life and the rejuvenation and the vision, God, and the advice. God, we now ask that you be the God that you are. God, continue to bless us, continue to pour on us, God, continue to love on us, and God, continue to see us through. And we'll be ever so mindful and ever so grateful to give your name all the glory, honor, and all the praise. I want to say thank you to the audience, the virtual audience that shared questions. I want to say thank you to each and every single one of our panelists. You all have been great. You all have been real. You all have been raw. I also want to give a shout out to two men that's been working behind the scenes. That is Brother Al Durant, who is our director of young adults. We're going to go ahead and give him a shout out. And then we want to really give a shout out to the man that makes it all happen, Minister Brother Roderick Josie. Man, without him, we could not do what we do when it comes to live streaming. So, man, we want to say thank you. And honestly, I also want to say this was Roderick's idea. This was his brainchild. He worked alongside Al Durant to make this happen. So thank you all so much. We can't get off without saying thank you to our pastor, the pastor of the Union Wesley African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in Washington, D.C., the Reverend Dr. Brian S. Relfoot. Thank you, sir. Y'all be blessed. Y'all be easy. Black Lives Matter. We love y'all. Out.
We love you, Shayna.
Thank you, Shayna.